Something is blocking the light inside 3i ATS, and whatever it is, it shouldn't exist. The leaked composite image looks wrong from the very first frame, a geometric void where nature should create chaos, a stable shadow where icy particles should flicker in turbulence. This isn't noise. It isn't a camera glitch. It's a structure holding its shape across every wavelength, as if someone built it and wrapped it in frozen debris. Now add the real nightmare. Our models show that ATS could wipe out up to 40% of Earth's ozone layer without ever touching the planet. And the probability that its trajectory formed naturally? 0.00005%. If you think that sounds deliberate, you're not alone. Stay with me, because the orbital mechanics, the spectral anomalies, the institutional silence, they paint a picture that only gets darker. And by the end of this episode, you'll understand why some researchers are quietly using the word parking, and why that word should scare you. If this hits you, well, you know what to do. Let's unravel it together. The first alert came in at 2:14 a.m. Eastern Time, a single-line message on Dr. Eleanor Reeves' secure NOAA channel. Reeves had been a stratospheric chemistry analyst for 20 years, the kind of scientist who measured changes so tiny most people would never notice them until the world was already on fire. The message was simple. Atlas, reanalysis complete. You need to see this. Wake up. Attached, a 4.7 megabyte data packet and a priority flag she'd seen only 3 times in her career, once during the 2011 Arctic ozone collapse, once during the Australian wildfires, and once she still wasn't allowed to talk about. She slid out of bed before she was fully awake, padded barefoot across the hardwood floor, and opened her laptop on the kitchen counter. One click, then another. The file opened. For a long moment, she didn't breathe. She didn't move. Then, very quietly, she whispered, "That's impossible." On her screen was the newly processed spectrographic analysis of 3i ATS's coma, the gaseous envelope surrounding the interstellar object. The data came from a combined stack of Hubble UV spectra and 2 weeks of high-resolution scans from the James Webb Space Telescope. But the numbers were wrong. At first, she assumed it was a calibration error, a corrupted file. Then she saw the anomaly highlighted by the analyst who sent it, a persistent spike in chlorine-based radicals, far above natural thresholds, far above survivable thresholds. She clicked deeper. The model projection loaded automatically. A globe, Earth, rotating slowly. Then a red band expanding across the southern hemisphere, climbing north like a storm of fire. A bold line of text appeared. Projected ozone depletion, 38.4 to 41.2%, depending on solar wind state at close pass. She pushed back from the counter as if the laptop were radioactive. She said, "No, no, no, there's no mechanism. There's no physical mechanism for a comet to do that." And yet the model held. Not because Atlas contained chlorine. It didn't. They checked. Not because Earth's atmosphere was weakening. It wasn't. No, the danger came from a previously unknown plasma interaction between the comet's hypervelocity ion tail and the magnetospheric bow shock created as Earth moved through the solar wind. In simpler terms, Atlas could flash catalyze the destruction of our ozone layer without ever hitting us, even passing at a distance of tens of millions of miles. She grabbed her phone. Her hands shook. 30 minutes later, Reeves was inside the NOAA Emergency Ops Hub, a windowless room buried beneath a nondescript concrete building outside Washington, the kind of place you only knew about if you worked there or if someone important thought you needed to. 12 screens glowed on the far wall. Scientists hunched over keyboards. Nobody was speaking. Nobody even looked up when she entered. At the center table sat Dr. Marcus Hale, director of atmospheric threat analysis, a man whose calm demeanor usually bordered on eerie. Tonight, he didn't look calm. "Ellie," he said, "you saw the model." "I saw it, and it's wrong." "I thought so too, but it's not." He tapped the tablet in front of him. A new simulation began. This one wasn't atmospheric chemistry, it was orbital mechanics. Atlas's trajectory, its velocity, its solar approach curve, its expected plasma behavior. Then overlaid, Earth's position, its magnetosphere, the solar wind forecast for the next 6 months. Reeves felt her stomach drop. "Marcus, this passes close. Closer than we estimated last year. JPL refined the trajectory yesterday. They forwarded it to us at 1 a.m. "How close?" 22 million miles at nearest point. "That's far. That shouldn't matter." "It wouldn't, unless its coma interacts exactly the way JWST data suggests it does." She stared at the simulation. At first it looked harmless, just lines and arcs and glowing curves. Then she saw it. The tail. Fluctuating unnaturally, flaring like a whip under extreme electromagnetic stress. "What is that?" "That," Halley said, "is Atlas's ion tail responding to solar wind like nothing we've ever recorded. That's what's causing the chlorine cascade in the model." "It's still a model," Reeves said. "We don't destroy the ozone layer over a model." "Eleanor," Halley said softly, "look at the timing." He tapped again. A red box appeared around a date. September 19th. 6:14 p.m. UTC. Reeves leaned closer. Her pulse thudded in her ears. No, that's... "Yes," Halley said. "That's when Earth enters the projected interaction zone." "And solar activity?" "Peak of the cycle. High probability of a geomagnetic storm." "How high?" He hesitated. 47%. Reeves stared at him for a long moment, then turned away, pressing her hand to her mouth. A 47% chance of geomagnetic storm conditions. A hyper-reactive interstellar comet tail. A trajectory that had narrowed by almost 500,000 miles since last winter. Put them together. 40% ozone loss. Southern hemisphere first. Then the equatorial band. Then the northern hemisphere as atmospheric circulation carried reactive radicals upward and inward. Mass death wouldn't be immediate, but it would come. Skin cancer rates would explode within 5 years. Crop yields would collapse within 2. Marine ecosystems, already fragile, would collapse entirely as UVC radiation sterilized surface waters. And that was the optimistic scenario. Reeves closed her eyes. "How long do we have before this goes public?" "It won't go public." She opened her eyes. "What?" "This stays classified until we have a mitigation plan. DHS, NASA, and SF, they're all on the same page." "Marcus," she said, "if the model's right, we have months. Months. People need..." "What people need is not global panic." She stared at him. At the man she'd trusted for years. At the system she thought she understood. Then she whispered the question she already knew the answer to. "Has the White House been briefed?" "Yes," he said. 2 hours ago. "And their response?" "A task force. Interagency. Compartmentalized. Full blackout. No public disclosure." "Unbelievable." "No," he said. "Predictable." She wanted to argue, to scream, but the truth was, he wasn't wrong. The pandemic, the wars, the supply chain collapses, humanity was exhausted. If people believed an interstellar comet was about to bleach the sky and fry half the biosphere, society would crack. Panic buying would look like a picnic, markets would crash, governments would destabilize. Religious factions would go feral, and the internet, she didn't even want to imagine the internet. Hallie leaned forward. We need you, Ellie. You understand stratospheric chemistry better than anyone in NOAA. We need mitigation strategies. We need countermeasures. We need hope. She didn't answer. He tried again. And we need you to keep this confidential. She turned to him, eyes sharp. Tell me one thing honestly. If this were a solar system comet, if this were a normal object, would we be this worried? Hallie exhaled slowly. No, he admitted. We wouldn't. Because this isn't normal, she said. No, he repeated. It's not. A silence settled over the room. Then he dropped the real bomb. That leaked image circulating online, he said. The geometric shadow inside Atlas, the one everyone thinks is fake. She nodded slowly. It's not fake, he said. Her breath caught. What do you mean? Multiple instruments captured it. Hubble, Webb, Pan-STARRS, even ground-based telescopes in Chile. Every dataset shows the same structure. A stable void inside the coma, absorbing light in a way nothing natural does. Her skin prickled. Are you telling me? I'm telling you, we don't know, he said. We don't know what it is, but we do know this. Atlas is behaving like an object under active electromagnetic control. Her room tilted. Control, she repeated. Yes. By whom? We don't know. She sank into a chair. Her mind raced. Fragmentation, plasma tails, chemical radicals, orbital anomalies, and now this, a stable shadow that held its shape across multiple wavelengths, a geometric void that defied natural explanation, a comet acting less like a comet and more like a vehicle. Hale continued quietly. There's one more thing you should see. He tapped a key. A new image appeared. Atlas, blue-white, glowing, smeared across the blackness of space. But this time behind the familiar coma, was a faint second structure, visible only in the infrared. A smooth curve, a shell, perfectly symmetrical. Her heart stopped. What is that? She whispered. We don't know, Hale said. But whatever it is, it survived its interstellar journey intact. The room felt colder. So what do we do? She asked finally. Hale didn't answer immediately. He looked at the screen, at the glowing comet, at the impossible shadow within it. We start with the ozone threat, he said, because that alone is enough to end civilization as we know it. And after that, she asked. He swallowed. After that, he said, we figure out whether Atlas is just dangerous, or deliberately dangerous. The lights dimmed automatically for the 3 a.m. power save cycle. Nobody moved, nobody spoke, and in the silence the comet glowed on the screen, bright, icy, beautiful, and utterly, impossibly wrong. When Reeves stepped outside at 4:06 a.m., the air felt different, cooler, sharper. The sky above Washington glowed a washed-out gray, the miserable color of light pollution and humidity. She stood in the parking lot, staring upward, trying to imagine a world where 40% of the ozone layer simply disappeared. A world where the sky might be this color permanently, where the sun would burn unfiltered, where the atmosphere itself would become a hazard. She shivered. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She frowned and answered. A woman's voice. Calm. Precise. Dr. Reeves, I'm Dr. Lena Hart. I'm with NASA's Interstellar Objects Program. Reeves exhaled shakily. Yes, she said. I know who you are. I'm calling because you need to see something not included in Noah's packet. What is it? Atlas, Hart said. It changed course. Reeves felt her knees weaken. What do you mean, changed course? She whispered. We mean, Dr. Hart said, that Atlas made a maneuver. Maneuver? As in it accelerated, Dr. Reeves. It altered trajectory by its own force. Natural comets don't do that. The night suddenly felt darker, colder, wrong. Where are you? Hart asked. In the parking lot of NOAA headquarters.
"Stay there," Hart said. "We're sending a car. We need you at Goddard immediately." "Why?" "Because if Atlas can maneuver," Hart said, "then we're not dealing with a passive hazard anymore." Reeves swallowed. "Then what are we dealing with?" A long pause. Then quietly, "Something that might not be a comet at all." The line clicked dead. Reeves stared at her phone. Somewhere overhead, invisible behind the morning haze, Earth drifted silently toward a date written in red on Hale's simulation, September 19th, 6:14 p.m. UTC. 5 months. 5 months until the interaction zone. 5 months until 40% ozone depletion. 5 months until something, not human, came close enough to kill the sky. And now it was moving on its own. She exhaled, breath trembling. "God help us," she whispered. A black SUV turned the corner. Its headlights swept across her. The door opened. "Dr. Reeves," the driver called. "We need to go." She took one last look at the sky, then climbed inside. The door slammed shut. And the story of 3I Atlas, the real story, the one nobody on Earth was prepared to hear, had finally begun. The drive to Goddard should have taken 40 minutes. They did it in 22. The SUV cut through the early morning fog like something fleeing a crime scene. The streets were empty, too early for commuters, too late for the night crews, and every stoplight seemed to turn green a split second before they reached the intersection, as if someone at DOT was clearing the way. Dr. Eleanor Reeves sat in the back seat, fingers locked around her phone, watching the world smear past the window. Streetlights, highway signs, the faint glow of dawn pushing up behind the skyline. But she wasn't seeing any of it. She was seeing the simulation, the red band of ozone collapse spreading across half the planet. And she was hearing Dr. Hart's voice. Atlas made a maneuver. The words replayed like a pulse under her skin. Comets don't maneuver. Comets don't change course. Comets don't accelerate unless there aren't comets. A cold weight settled in her stomach. The driver, a young man who hadn't said more than 4 words since picking her up, glanced in the rearview mirror. His eyes were steady, calm, too calm. "Ma'am," he said, "we're arriving." The gates of NASA Goddard Space Flight Center loomed ahead, floodlit and bristling with security far beyond anything Reeves remembered. Guards in tactical vests, vehicle scanners, a checkpoint that looked more like the entrance to a classified military facility than a campus for atmospheric and heliophysics research. The SUV rolled to a stop. Armed guards approached. ID, one barked. She handed over her badge. They scanned it twice, then scanned her face. "Clear," the guard said. "Proceed." The SUV rolled forward. Reeves tried to swallow the lump in her throat, but couldn't. Something was wrong here, not just with Atlas, but with all of this. They weren't treating it like a scientific anomaly. They were treating it like a threat, a direct threat. The SUV stopped at Building 34, Astrophysics Science Division. Dr. Lena Hart stood under the overhang waiting for her, arms crossed, jaw clenched. She was tall, mid-40s, sharp features, hair pulled back in a way that suggested she'd gotten the call in the middle of drafting something important and hadn't even bothered to finish brushing it. "Eleanor," she said, "come with me." No handshake, no greeting, no small talk, just business. Reeves followed her inside. Security doors slid open automatically as they passed. Keypads glowed. Cameras tracked them. They descended 3 floors underground and entered a lab with a 20-foot screen dominating the far wall. The image on it froze Reeves in place. 3I Atlas. Infrared, glowing like a ghost. And below the image, numbers streamed like a waterfall. "Start from the top," Reeves said. "Tell me what happened." Hart tapped a control pad. The image zoomed out. The orbit overlaid. Atlas's trajectory had been stable for the past 8 months, he said. Minor perturbations expected. Nothing concerning. She brought up a timeline. She tapped again. The image zoomed further. A faint curve of the coma brightened, then dimmed. "That wasn't outgassing," Hart said. "At least not normal outgassing. The light signature matched no known volatile species. It looked more like plasma compression." Reeves frowned. Compression from what? From thrust, Hart said. Reeves stared at her. No, she said. That's impossible. Hart exhaled. I thought so too. Then this happened. The screen changed again. Now it showed Atlas's path relative to Jupiter, Earth, and the solar wind pressure zones. Reeves watched. Then the line twitched. Not by much, not the wild swing of a ship steering hard, but a clean, deliberate, measurable deviation. How strong was the acceleration? Reeves asked. Extremely small, about 0.07 millimeters per second squared. That's tiny. Not for a comet this size, Hart said. A natural comet would require a massive outgassing jet to make that move. It would brighten by orders of magnitude in the visible and infrared. And Atlas? Hart tapped the pad. The screen split. Left side, brightness of a typical comet undergoing a maneuver of similar magnitude. Right side, Atlas. Atlas barely changed luminosity at all.
It's thrust without the light signature, Hart said, without the gas, without the heat, without anything. So how is that possible? Hart didn't answer immediately. Finally, she said, we don't know. But it wasn't random. The maneuver adjusted Atlas's course by a small but meaningful amount, enough to alter Earth's interaction window. Reeves felt her pulse spike. How much did it change the ozone model? Hart brought up the atmospheric simulation. The red zone pulsed, shifted, then expanded by nearly 15%. Oh my God, Reeves whispered. It made it worse. Yes, Hart said. It did. Reeves pressed a hand to her forehead. So, Atlas is acting like it wants to maximize its interaction with Earth's magnetosphere? Hart hesitated. I'm not willing to phrase it like that, she said, not until we understand the underlying physics. But that's what the data implies. Yes, Hart said, that is what the data implies. A long silence filled the room. Hart stepped closer to the screen and pointed at the image of the geometric shadow inside the coma. You saw this leak online, Hart said. The shadow, the void. Yes. Do you know how many wavelengths it appears in? No. All of them. Reeves' eyes widened. That's not possible, she said. Even a metallic structure would. Absorb differently at different frequencies, Hart finished. Yes, exactly. But this thing behaves like a universal absorber. That doesn't exist. It does now. Reeves stared at the dark, perfect shape inside Atlas's glow. A circle of nothingness, a wound in light. What about radar? She asked. Have we tried radar imaging? We did, Hart said. It returned a null. Null, no reflection, no scattering, as if radar passes straight through it. Reeves' blood ran cold. Like a gravitational anomaly, she whispered. Or a cavity. Or a technology we don't understand, Hart said. Reeves closed her eyes. The room felt too small, too bright, too real. What does the Department of Defense think? Hart's expression tightened. They think it's a threat. And you? Hart hesitated. I think, she exhaled, I think we're looking at something fundamentally new, something not built by human hands, something ancient, something complex. Alien, Reeves whispered. Hart didn't respond, but her silence said enough. A door behind them hissed open. Reeves turned. A man entered wearing an Air Force uniform with no nameplate and no unit insignia. He closed the door behind him, tapped a code, and the room sealed with a sound like a vault shutting. He stepped forward. Dr. Reeves, he said, extending a hand. General Samuel Trent, U.S. Space Command. Reeves shook his hand. His grip was firm, cold. General, she said. He nodded once, then turned to the screen. So, he said calmly, you've been briefed. Reeves bristled at his tone. I've been shown partial data, and I have questions. You're not alone. Trent said. "We all have questions." "Let me ask the most obvious one," Reeves said. "Why wasn't Noah given the full telemetry when the maneuver happened?" "Because," Trent said, "Noah wasn't on the authorized list yet." "Authorized by who?" "The National Security Council." He said, "This situation is now classified at the highest level. Only essential personnel are cleared." Reeves stepped forward. "General, you're talking about an object that could destroy 40% of the ozone layer. This isn't a national threat, this is a planetary threat. And that," Trent said, "is exactly why we need to control the narrative." Reeves clenched her jaw. "People have a right to know." "People have a right not to panic themselves into a global collapse," Trent snapped. "You saw the projections." She didn't answer. Because he was right, and he was horribly wrong. Trent approached the screen showing the maneuver. "Dr. Reeves," he said, "what you're looking at is not merely unusual, it's intentional. This object changed its course in a way that cannot be explained by natural physics, and the change increased the probability of a catastrophic atmospheric event." Reeves took a breath. "So you think it's deliberate? You think Atlas is hostile?" "Hostile is a human word," Trent said. "I'm not assigning motive. I'm describing consequence." Reeves stepped closer to the image of the void. "What is inside that structure?" she asked. "We don't know," Trent said. "But we know this: whatever's in there is shielded from detection by every method we have." Reeves stared at the darkness. "Could it be a power system?" she asked. "An engine?" Hart shook her head. "No heat signature, no emissions, no neutrino flux, no radiation. It's the most silent thing we've ever observed." Trent folded his arms. "And silent things worry me." Reeves swallowed. "What do you want from me?" Trent didn't hesitate. "We want you to lead the mitigation team," he said. "We want you to find a way to prevent the ozone loss." Reeves stared at him. "And if I can't?" "Then we," Trent said, "prepare for a scenario no administration in history has ever had to contemplate." Reeves closed her eyes. The weight pressed down like lead. "What is the timeline?" she asked finally. 5 months, minimum. Possibly less if Atlas adjusts course again. "Can we send a probe? A fast interceptor?" "We've already started designing one, but the launch window is tight. Very tight." "And even if we launch," Trent added, "we can't guarantee interception. Atlas is unpredictable." Reeves stared at the screen. Atlas stared back, glowing in the cold void, the impossible shadow inside it pulsing like a heartbeat. "What if it wants us to send something?" Reeves whispered. Trent's face tightened. "We're not entertaining psychological hypotheses," he said. But his eyes flickered, just once, enough for Reeves to see fear, real fear. Hart broke the silence. "There's something else we haven't shown you," she said. Reeves turned. Hart brought up a new window, a high-resolution image, filtered, enhanced, clarified. It was Atlas, but this time the coma was stripped away using a spectral subtraction algorithm. The shadow inside was clearer, sharper. Not a circle, not a cavity, a shape. Reeves felt her breath freeze. It was a hexagon, perfect, symmetrical, hardened against entropy. "What the hell?" she whispered. Hart zoomed in. The edges sharpened further. Not random ice fracturing, not jagged mineral, not porous rock. Smooth surfaces, straight lines, angles that did not occur in natural cold formation. "Dr. Reeves," Hart said quietly, "we're looking at a structure." Reeves stepped closer. A structure inside an interstellar comet. A structure older than humanity. A structure moving toward Earth and maneuvering. "General," she whispered, "you have no idea what this is." "That's correct, and that is why we must assume maximum risk." Reeves turned to him. "You think it's a weapon?" He didn't deny it. "It doesn't matter what I think," he said. "What matters is what the president thinks, and she believes we may be facing an engineered object with unknown intent. Reeves exhaled shakily. So, what happens now? Trent tapped his tablet. A door opened. Two more officials entered. One from FEMA, one from the CIA. This wasn't a scientific briefing anymore. This was a war room. Trent spoke quietly but clearly. Now, he said, we begin the containment protocol. Reeves stiffened. Containment of what? She asked. He met her eyes. Containment of the truth, he said, until we have a solution. Reeves stared at him, at the cold confidence in his voice, and felt something crack inside her. General, she said softly, if this is a structure, if this is artificial, if this was built, then whatever sent it might be watching. Yes, Trent said, we've considered that. And if we hide what's happening, if we fail to communicate, if we act like a military threat to something that may be millions of years ahead of us, what then? Trent didn't blink. Then we survive as long as we can. A chill ran down her spine, because that wasn't a strategy, that was a confession. Reeves turned back to the screen. The structure glowed in false color, a perfect geometric impossibility buried somewhere inside an object that should have been nothing but ice and dust. Something ancient, something alien, something awake. And for the first time since this nightmare began, Reeves felt something worse than fear. She felt watched. Hart cleared her throat. There's something else we haven't shown you. Reeves looked at her. What more could there possibly be? Hart's voice cracked.
The acceleration wasn't the only thing Atlas did last night, she said. It also emitted a signal. A signal, Reeves whispered. Hart nodded. Not radio, she said. Not light. Not anything we understand. Trent tapped a screen. A waveform appeared. A strange oscillation. Not noise. Not random. Patterned. Where was it directed? Reeves asked. Hart looked at her. Earth, she said. The room went silent. Reeves felt the floor tilt beneath her feet. 3 pulses, Hart said, evenly spaced, increasing in amplitude. What does that mean? Reeves whispered. Trent answered. It means, he said, that Atlas knows we're here. The alarms in the room flickered on the walls, silent but flashing. Red, red, red. A security alert. Hart's tablet buzzed. She read the message, her face drained of color. What? Reeves asked. Hart's voice trembled. Atlas, she said. It just accelerated again. Reeves felt her heartbeat slam into her ribs. How much? She whispered. Hart swallowed. Enough, she said, to change everything. And the screen updated. The new trajectory appeared. Atlas wasn't passing Earth anymore. It was aiming closer, much closer. Close enough not just to interact with the magnetosphere, but to graze the upper atmosphere itself. The room erupted into chaos. And Reeves understood. This wasn't a comet. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't random. Whatever Atlas was, it was coming to us. For a long moment, no one in the room spoke. The updated trajectory hovered on the wall like a blade suspended over the planet. A thin glowing line curved towards Earth, closer than any projection had ever indicated. Something inside Reeves tightened, a cold thread winding through her chest. It was happening. The unthinkable, the impossible. Atlas was adjusting course towards Earth, not a pass, not a drift, a vector. General Trent barked into a secure phone, his voice clipped. Engineers scrambled across the lab, screens updating so fast they blurred. The floor seemed to vibrate with panic, but Reeves didn't move. The numbers on the screen felt unreal, detached, like watching a disaster film from inside the theater while everyone else was already running for the exits. Dr. Hart stepped beside her. You need to see the full data set, she said softly. Reeves followed her to a secondary console. The lighting overhead dimmed as the display brightened, bathing their faces in cold silver. The signal waveform appeared again. 3 pulses, evenly spaced, clean, geometrically perfect. This isn't noise, Reeves said. No, Hart agreed, it isn't. Reeves leaned closer. The pulses weren't identical. Each one carried subtle internal structure, like 3 chords struck on an alien instrument, similar in tone but different in resonance. What's the spacing? Reeves murmured. 4.98 seconds, Hart said, consistent to within 1 microsecond. Too precise for natural plasma fluctuation, Reeves said. Exactly. Any modulation? Hart hesitated. Yes, she said, but not in any spectrum we expected. She pulled up a magnified analysis. The waveform fractured into layers, ultraviolet harmonics, low-frequency gravitational oscillations, faint electromagnetic interference. But beneath all of that was something else, something deeper. A pattern not made of waves, but of timing. A sequence that echoed across energy states like a reflection in multiple mirrors. Reeves felt a chill at the base of her spine. Is that prime intervals? Hart nodded slowly. We're running additional tests, but yes, the timing sequence matches a prime number pattern, and the pulse amplitudes follow a Fibonacci progression. Reeves exhaled shakily. That's a message. Yes. And it's directed at Earth. Yes. Reeves pressed her fingers to her lips. Have you decoded anything? Hart shook her head. It's too alien, too compressed. It may not be a message in the linguistic sense. It could be a ping, a handshake, something like radar or sonar. Active sensing, Reeves whispered, like it's scanning us. Hart didn't disagree. It could be measuring atmospheric density, or biological signatures, or electromagnetic emissions. We don't know. Reeves stared at the pulses. But it's intelligent. Yes, Hart said, it is. A tremor ran through Reeves' body. Not fear. Not exactly. Something deeper. Something older. A recognition that the universe was not silent, and silence had never meant emptiness. She turned abruptly. General Trent. He finished his call and snapped, What now? 3 pulses, Reeves said. Prime sequencing, Fibonacci structure. That's intelligence. You need to stop treating this like a hostile incursion. Trent stared at her, unblinking. Dr. Reeves, he said, intelligence is not the same as benevolence. It doesn't mean malevolence either. It means capability. She stepped toward him. It also means communication, she said. We cannot retaliate against something we don't understand. We're not retaliating, Trent replied. We're preparing. Preparing for what? For every scenario, Trent said, including first contact with hostile intent. Reeves opened her mouth, but the alarms on the wall flared again. Hart turned to a new telemetry screen. Oh God, she whispered. Reeves' heart stopped. What now? The acceleration wasn't singular, Hart said. It's continuous. Atlas is still changing course. How fast? Reeves asked. Too fast. Numbers danced across the screen. Velocity increases, vector shifts, plasma fluctuations, each one built on the last like a chain reaction. The ion tail is reorganizing. The coma is collapsing inward. Reeves squinted. What does that mean? Hart said. It means Atlas is preparing for something. General Trent pressed his palm against the table. Trajectory now crosses the exosphere. Projected altitude at closest pass, 97 kilometers. Hart's voice cracked. That's atmospheric entry height. Reeves' legs got cold. No, she breathed. Comets don't skim atmospheres. They're not aerodynamically stable. They break apart. Trent nodded grimly. Unless they're not comets, he said. The room fell silent. For the first time, Reeves saw real fear in General Trent's eyes. He turned to Reeves. We're implementing DEFCON protocols. Get ready. For what? For an object of unknown origin entering the upper atmosphere, possibly intentionally. Reeves felt her lungs tighten. You can't assume intent, and you can't assume safety, Trent shot back. Reeves turned to the screen again. Atlas glowed like a wounded star, the hexagonal void pulsing faintly with each prime sequence pulse. The coma rippled, the tail compacted, and then, Hart gasped, Look! A tiny bright flare erupted on Atlas's leading edge. Not natural, not chaotic, not random. A directed plume. It's firing, Reeves whispered. The plume grew, just long enough to adjust rotation, then faded again. Atlas began to tilt. Not tumble, tilt, purposefully. Why would it? Reeves cut her off. To align itself. For what? Reeves asked. Hart didn't answer, but the answer appeared on the screen. The hexagonal structure rotated into direct alignment with Earth. Reeves' heart stuttered. It's pointing at us, she whispered. The room froze. Everyone stared. A structure inside Atlas, an alien structure, was facing Earth, as though preparing to, what? Transmit? Observe? Engage?
General Trent's voice cut through the hushed terror. "Everyone out! Situation room! Now!" But Reeves didn't move. She was staring too hard. Something was wrong with the hexagon. Because up close, enhanced by Goddard's newest imaging software, the edges were changing. Not static, not rigid. Flexing. Like petals, or plates, or something mechanical. "What is it doing?" Reeves whispered. Hart swallowed. "It's opening,"
she said. They rushed into the secure situation room, a cavernous space lined with screens and conference tables. The door sealed behind them with a heavy metallic thud. On the main display, a live feed of Atlas, zoomed, stabilized, terrifying. The hexagonal structure inside the comet was unfolding like a blooming flower, segment by segment, plate by plate, precision in every movement. Reeves stared, her breath shallow. "What are we looking at?" Trent demanded. Hart answered quietly. "A mechanism." Trent turned on her. "What kind of mechanism?" "We don't know," she said. "But it's not random. This is controlled, coordinated." Reeves stepped closer to the screen. The plates unfurled further, revealing a deeper core, dark, smooth, unnervingly symmetrical. "Is that a chamber?" she whispered. "Possibly," Hart said. The plates continued to open. Reeves couldn't look away. The core was shaped like nothing she'd ever seen, neither organic nor mechanical. It was smooth, nearly featureless, with faint luminescent lines drifting across its surface like bioluminescent veins. "What's the material?" Trent asked. "Unknown," Hart said. "Spectroscopy shows nothing. It absorbs every wavelength we throw at it." Reeves felt faint. "It's not absorbing," she said. "It's filtering." Hart blinked. "What?" "Look," Reeves said. "The lines, those blue filaments, they're modulating. Not randomly. That's data processing. That's computation." General Trent rounded on her. "You're telling me this thing is a machine?" Reeves didn't flinch. "I'm telling you it's a computer," she said. "A quantum processor, or something beyond quantum." Hart straightened. "So the structure is not a habitat?" "No," Reeves murmured. "Not a weapon?" "No." "Then what is it?" Reeves stared at the luminescent core. And then she knew. Not because she understood the physics, but because the pattern felt familiar, like the pulse signal. A sequence. Prime intervals. Fibonacci echoes. "It's a scanner," she whispered. Trent stiffened. "A what?" "A scanner," Reeves repeated. "That core is not preparing to fire. It's preparing to read. It's aligning to Earth not to attack, but to analyze." Trent slammed his hand on the table. "You don't know that!" Reeves didn't break eye contact with the screen. "It's studying us," she said quietly. "And whatever it's looking for, it's getting ready to measure." Hart nodded slowly. "The pulses," she said. "The primed spacing. A scan frequency." "But why Earth?" Trent demanded. Reeves turned to him. "Because Earth has something most planets don't. Something rare. Something that might trigger an interstellar probe to stop." "And what's that?" Trent snapped. "Ozone," Reeves whispered. The room went silent. Hart blinked. "Ozone?" she said. "Why ozone?" Reeves swallowed. "Ozone is a biosignature, a fingerprint of life. Intelligent probes, if they exist, wouldn't look for oxygen. They'd look for ozone, because ozone stabilizes after life becomes complex." Trent stared at her, jaw tight. "You're saying Atlas is scanning us because of our ozone layer?" "Yes," Reeves said. "It's the only explanation that fits." Hart's voice trembled. "But then why would its presence threaten to destroy it?" Reeves hesitated, and hesitated longer, because this was the part she didn't want to say. The part her scientific mind was screaming against. Unless
Unless the ozone destruction wasn't a side effect, unless it wasn't a threat, unless... It's a test, Reeves whispered. A quiet gasp passed through the room. Trent's expression hardened. What kind of test? Reeves spoke slowly. As Atlas passes through the solar wind, its plasma tail interacts with Earth's magnetic field. That interaction catalyzes reactive radicals that break down ozone. And that's a test? Trent snapped. Reeves nodded. If the ozone collapses, life collapses. If life collapses, the probe marks the planet as uninhabited. If ozone recovers, the probe marks the planet as resilient. Hart stared at her. A biosphere resilience test. A way to differentiate fragile life from robust life. Reeves nodded slowly. Yes. But that means... Hart began. Trent cut her off, voice rising. That means this thing is about to destabilize Earth, to measure our ability to recover. Nobody answered, because the implication was too horrifying to refute. Reeves swallowed. This isn't an attack, she said softly. It's a planetary assessment. Trent stared at the screen. Assessment or extermination makes no difference. If Atlas destroys 40% of the ozone layer, we lose civilization. I don't care what its motive is. Hart's voice broke. But if it's a test, if it's something automated, then it won't stop. No, Reeves said. And that was the moment the room shifted. The scientists realized they weren't dealing with malice. The general realized he wasn't dealing with negotiation. And Reeves? Reeves realized something far worse. If Atlas was scanning Earth, if its mechanism was automated, if the ozone collapse was part of the test, then the maneuver wasn't to bring it closer to Earth. It was to bring it into perfect scanning range. It needed proximity. It needed angle. It needed alignment. The probe wasn't coming to harm Earth. It was coming to complete its mission. Reeves exhaled. We've misunderstood everything, she whispered. This entire time. Atlas isn't steering toward us because it detected us. Trent froze. Then why? He asked. Reeves pointed to the screen. To complete whatever it was programmed to do. And the ozone collapse isn't a consequence. Hart whispered the conclusion. It's the measurement. Reeves nodded. Atlas is here to measure how Earth's biosphere responds to catastrophic ozone depletion. Hart stared at her in horror. But that means... Reeves spoke the words none of them wanted to hear. It means Atlas was designed to break the sky. The room went silent. And that was the moment, the exact second, the story changed. Because the screen flashed again. Another update. A new data feed. And this time the numbers were impossible. Altitude shift, Hart said weakly. It's descending faster. How much faster? Trent demanded. Reeves stared. It's no longer skimming the atmosphere. It's slicing into it. Hart looked at her. Eleanor, what does that mean? Reeves felt cold all over. It means the test is starting early. And far above Earth, in the silent dark, 3I Atlas opened its final plate, revealing a sphere inside the hexagon that began to glow. Not white, not blue, ultraviolet, deadly, precise, calibrated. A frequency that destroys ozone faster than any known chemical. A frequency that only one kind of machine would use. A planetary scanner, designed to collapse and measure a world. And then Atlas fired.
The first ultraviolet pulse hit Earth at 0312 UTC. Nobody on the ground saw it. Nobody felt it. Nobody heard a thing. But the sky did. At NOAA's Boulder Atmospheric Observatory, a dozen sensors spiked simultaneously. Solar instruments screaming warnings that didn't match any solar event on record. Within seconds, automated systems flagged the anomaly as a false positive solar flare. Within a minute, it escalated to unknown extraterrestrial UV surge. Within 3 minutes, every atmospheric monitoring station across the southern hemisphere confirmed the same impossible spike. Ozone depletion rate, plus 6% per hour. The models weren't wrong. The simulations hadn't overestimated. Atlas was doing exactly what the data predicted. It was breaking the sky. In the NASA Goddard Situation Room, a suffocating silence followed the first pulse. Then everything exploded at once. Sensor saturation. We're losing upper stratosphere readings. Chile station's offline. Data mismatch. These numbers can't be... Oh my God, they are real! General Trent slammed his fist on the table. Quiet! The room froze, though the panic still simmered under the surface like boiling water beneath a thin lid. Reeves leaned over the nearest console, her hands trembling over the keyboard. Run the Antarctic cross-section again. I need confirmation. Full recalibration. No smoothing functions. The system processed, each line of code blinking like a heartbeat. Then the output rendered. Southern Hemisphere ozone, down 4.1% in 6 minutes. Reeves felt her throat close. That's not possible, she whispered. Hart leaned beside her. It is, she said softly. Atlas is firing directly into the magnetosphere. It's focusing UVC wavelengths right where the ozone is weakest. General Trent's voice cut in. How long until it reaches 40%? Reeves looked up at him. At this rate, 4 to 6 hours. A murmur rippled through the room. One of the engineers made a sound that wasn't quite a sob, but wasn't anything else either. Trent didn't flinch. Then we have 4 hours to stop it. Hart rounded on him. With what, exactly? A diplomatic message? A kinetic strike? We don't even know what part of Atlas to hit. We hit it, all of it, Trent snapped. Reeves stepped forward. You fire at that thing, and you might trigger responses we can't predict. We already can't predict them. General, listen to me. No, Trent said sharply. You listen. I'm responsible for national security. This thing is tearing apart the atmosphere. We treat it like an active threat. Period. You attack it, Reeves said quietly, and humanity fails the test before it even begins. Trent stared her down. It's not a test. It's an attack. Reeves' jaw set. And I think you're wrong. But before Trent could respond, a second pulse hit. The entire building vibrated as telemetry cascaded across the screens. UV spike, another surge. Ozone down 9.3 total, still falling. We're at Category 2 depletion. This is happening too fast, way too fast. Reeves felt nausea clawed her throat. Marcus's worst-case scenario was 12 hours. It's doing it in minutes. Hart's hands flew across her tablet. Eleanor, look. She pulled up the raw telemetry feed. The pulses weren't random. They were rhythmic. 3 UV bursts, then a pause, then 3 more. Repeating, escalating, a pattern. Reeves' voice cracked. It's taking measurements between pulses. Trent stared at the waveform. Are you telling me it's watching the ozone collapse happen in real time? Yes, like a cardiac monitor tracking a dying patient. Trent turned slowly. Then you better figure out how to stabilize the patient because the world doesn't have hours to spare. Within 30 minutes, emergency conference lines were open with the White House, the Pentagon, the UN, and half a dozen international scientific committees. Reeves stood at the center of a storm of overlapping voices, each one desperate, terrified, authoritative, clueless. Deploying stratospheric aerosols. Can we use HARP? Can HARP interfere? UV filtration nets, is that even real science? This will crash agriculture. We need a global shelter-in-place order. The stock market just halted trading. What does NASA recommend? What do we tell the public? Is this the end? Is it alien? Say something useful, goddammit! Reeves closed her eyes. She remembered what her doctoral advisor had told her years ago. In a crisis, the first person who speaks with clarity becomes the voice the world listens to. Reeves opened her eyes. Everyone, shut up. The room went silent. Even the Pentagon liaison froze. Reeves stepped forward, voice steady. Atlas is firing a structured ultraviolet beam at the magnetosphere. It is catalyzing a reaction that destroys ozone far faster than anything natural. She looked around the room, meeting every set of eyes. And we believe this is not an attack. It's a scan, a planetary assessment, automated, indifferent to life or death. The UN representative's voice trembled through the speaker. What does that mean, Dr. Reeves? Reeves inhaled. It means humanity is being tested. Gasps, whispers, muting and unmuting microphones. And, Reeves continued, tests can be failed. General Trent cut in. Voice sharp, and tests can be stopped. Reeves turned to him. No, they can't. Not this one. Atlas isn't making decisions. It's running a program, a fixed sequence. Even if you blow the object apart, the damage it already inflicted will remain. Trent's fists tightened. Then what's your solution? Reeves stepped forward. We stabilize the ozone layer. How? The FEMA director cried. You can't just replace ozone. No, Reeves said, but we can stop its destruction. Hart stepped beside her. Eleanor, are you suggesting? Yes. Reeves looked around. We reverse the magnetospheric charge distribution. We interfere with the electric field alignment Atlas is using as a conduit. If we break the pathway, the UV pulses scatter. They won't focus on the ozone layer anymore. General Trent stared. You're saying you want to hack Earth's magnetic field? Yes. With what? Power. A lot of it. Hart's eyes widened. Eleanor, you're talking about initiating an artificial geomagnetic storm. Yes. That's insane. Yes. That could damage satellites worldwide. Yes. It could fry half the power grid. Yes. It could kill astronauts on the ISS. Yes. Hart's voice cracked. And we still might fail. Reeves nodded again. Yes. The room stared at her as though she'd sprouted wings. Then the president's voice crackled through the encrypted line. Dr. Reeves, is this our best option? Reeves did not hesitate. It's our only option. General Trent turned to the president. Madam President, initiating an artificial geomagnetic storm is effectively a global EMP. The geopolitical repercussions. We are not discussing geopolitics. We are discussing survival. Another pulse hit. A deeper one. Longer, more intense. Ozone depletion, 14% and climbing. Reeves looked at the screen, then at the president's voice. If we do nothing, we lose everything. A long silence. Finally, what do you need, Dr. Reeves? Reeves inhaled. A coordinated power surge through HARP, Arecibo's remaining grid, and every high-altitude radar array on the planet capable of pushing megawatt output. That's impossible, Hart whispered. It's necessary, Reeves said. General Trent folded his arms. You think you can disrupt Atlas's alignment? I know we can try. What if it adjusts? Reeves looked him dead in the eyes. Then humanity is out of time. 3 hours into the ozone collapse, the skies over South America began to whiten. Not visually, not yet, but chemically. Weather balloons released over Argentina and Chile reported unprecedented clarity at ozone altitudes. No scattering, no refraction, UVC radiation punching through the atmosphere like a knife. The first ecological casualties began. Phytoplankton, tiny, fragile. The base of the marine food chain. Their decline wasn't in years, or months, or weeks. It began in real time. Sensors in the South Atlantic lit up with death signatures, the kind of mass sterilization event that only happened after supernovas, asteroid impacts, or nuclear wars. And above it all, Atlas hovered in its deadly alignment, pulsing, measuring, watching. The HARP complex in Alaska roared to life. Massive transmitters warmed. Antennas rotated into position. Engineers scrambled across the snowy ground, plugging in emergency power couplings, triple-checking safety overrides. The facility hadn't run at full power in years. Now, it would run hotter than any point in its history. In Puerto Rico, the remains of Arecibo's old infrastructure were jerry-rigged with temporary reflectors and power converters.
It wasn't perfect, but perfection wasn't required. Only force. Raw, overwhelming electromagnetic force. At the Goddard Command Center, Reeves watched as the global electromagnetic surge network came online. A lattice of nodes, a web of power, a last desperate attempt to blind an alien measurement device. General Trent stood beside her, tense as a coiled spring. "Are you ready?" he asked. She stared at the countdown. 2 minutes until synchronized firing. "No," she said, "but we're out of time." The ozone level hit 22% depletion. Hart whispered, "If we fail." Reeves finished the sentence for her. "There won't be anyone left to blame us." The final seconds ticked down. 5, 4, 3. A deep rumble filled the Earth's electromagnetic skeleton. A resonance felt more as pressure in the bones than as sound in the air. 2, 1. "Fire," Reeves said, and the sky lit up. Not with color, not with light, not with anything visible, but with force, a geomagnetic shockwave surging along the magnetosphere, distorting the field lines, bending Earth's invisible armor like a shield catching a blow. The power surged. The atmosphere shuddered. Satellites flickered. Radio communications dropped out worldwide, and the UV beam from Atlas stuttered. "Amplitude drop," Hart screamed. "It's destabilizing." Ozone depletion paused at 26%. The room erupted in shouts. "It worked! We disrupted the channel! Field integrity dropping for Atlas. Electromagnetic scattering rising." Reeves exhaled so hard she nearly collapsed. "We did it. We broke the scan." General Trent allowed himself a single breath of relief. "Good work," he said. "Now let's—" But then, Atlas moved. A new plume erupted from its surface. Not UV, not plasma. Something else. Something darker. Reeves stared at the new telemetry. "No, no, no, no." Hart covered her mouth. "What is it doing?" Trent demanded. Reeves felt her heartbeat stop. "It's compensating. It's adapting to our interference." "How?" Trent barked. She pointed at the feed. "It's realigning its internal structure. It's shifting to a new frequency band." Hart's voice broke. "Eleanor, that's not UV." "I know." "What is it?" Trent demanded. Reeves swallowed. "It's microwaves. Microwaves. A frequency that passed through the magnetosphere, a frequency that didn't require ozone targeting, a frequency that heated atmospheric oxygen directly." Hart whispered, "It's bypassing our defenses." Reeves nodded slowly. "It's restarting the test." General Trent looked at her like she had just issued a death sentence. "Dr. Reeves," he said hoarsely, "what happens if Atlas uses microwaves instead of UV?" Reeves closed her eyes and whispered, "It doesn't break the ozone." Trent exhaled, but her next words froze him solid. It heats the atmosphere instead. Hart's face went pale. How much heating? She asked. Reeves stared at the numbers on the screen. Enough to destabilize jet streams, enough to collapse weather systems, enough to trigger global storms, and enough to kill millions long before ozone loss ever could. Reeves whispered the truth. Atlas is switching to the second phase of the test. Hart whispered back, "What's the second phase?" Reeves opened her eyes. Climate collapse. The room fell silent. General Trent stared at the screen. "No more options," he said. "We hit it." Reeves didn't argue, because she finally understood the truth. Atlas wasn't here to scan Earth. It was here to judge it. And the test had just begun. The first microwave surge hit at 0358 UTC. Not a pulse this time. Not a test shot. A full radiative sweep. It washed through the upper atmosphere like a heat wave sweeping across a desert, silent but catastrophic. Weather satellites registered a temperature spike of plus 14 degrees C in the mesosphere within seconds. Jet stream vectors twisted, polar vortices destabilized, pressure gradients collapsed like snapped ligaments. Atlas wasn't poking anymore. It was prying. In the Goddard Command Center, the screens shifted from red alerts to full spectrum emergency. Temperature spike over the southern Pacific. Storm cells forming where no storms should form. Tropopause inversion. I've never seen anything like this. We've lost comms with NOAA West. ISS crew reporting radiation surges. We're at, Jesus Christ, Phase 2 has begun. General Trent turned to Reeves. "This is it," he said. "End of discussion. We strike." Reeves didn't argue. The room was filled with dread, the kind that weighed on the lungs like water. Hart stood next to Reeves, quietly gripping her wrist. "It's adapting to us," she whispered. "Every move we make, it counters." Reeves shook her head. "No, it's not countering. It's escalating." Hart frowned. "What's the difference?" Reeves looked at her. "Escalation doesn't mean malice. It means process. A robotic process. A fixed sequence. Atlas isn't thinking," Reeves said softly. "It's following instructions." "Whose instructions?" Hart whispered. Reeves didn't answer, because she didn't know. Not yet. The strike package launched at 0423 UTC. 3 classified hypersonic vehicles, 1 experimental exoatmospheric interceptor, 2 kinetic kill warheads. Their trajectories arced through space like silver needles, stitching a new wound into the sky. The DoD watch floor erupted in tension. "Velocity nominal. Target acquisition confirmed. All 3 birds locked. Impact in 90 seconds. General Trent leaned forward. "Let's see if this thing bleeds." Hart stared at the telemetry with hollow eyes. Reeves didn't look at the missiles. She looked at Atlas. On screen, the object hovered in its unnatural stillness, its dark surface shimmering in the polarized light. Microwave readings were rising. It was preparing another sweep. Reeves felt her pulse quicken. "It knows we're coming." Trent scoffed. "It doesn't know anything." But Reeves didn't believe that anymore. At T-minus 10 seconds, something happened. Something impossible. The microwave emissions stopped. Completely. Not faded, not tapered. Stopped. Instantly. The room froze. "What the hell? We didn't jam it. It just shut itself down. Did it detect the incoming strike? No known sensors could... This makes no sense." Reeves stepped toward the screen. Oh God, this isn't defensive behavior." Hart stared at her. "What then is it?" Reeves' voice trembled. It's making room. For what? Reeves swallowed. For the last phase. Anticipation crawled through the room like a parasite. T-minus 3 seconds. T-minus 2. T-minus... The missiles vanished. All of them. Instantly. No explosion, no flash, no debris. Just gone. Telemetry lost. Targets not destroyed. They're missing. Where did they go? How do you lose hypersonic weapons? They just disappeared. Reeves stared at the blank screen. Not disappeared, she whispered. Redirected. How? Trent roared. We saw no defensive systems. Reeves' voice shook. Because it didn't intercept them. It rewrote the physics they were traveling in. Atlas began to glow. Not bright, not warm, not like anything that belonged near a sunlit planet. It was a glow like deep-sea bioluminescence, but black. A darkness that radiated, a shadow that cast itself outward, a silhouette increasingly defined by absence. The object wasn't hiding its structure anymore. It was revealing it. What is that? Shape resolution rising. Is that geometric? No, those aren't planes. This thing has internal chambers. Oh God, it's opening. Reeves stared, speech failing her, because inside the black glow, they could finally see it.
A lattice. A grid. A repeating structure with mathematical uniformity. Not fractal, not organic, not geological. Manufactured. Hart grabbed Reeves's arm. Eleanor, this thing isn't a comet. Reeves whispered, I know. It's not even a probe. I know. General Trent backed away from the screen. Then what the hell is it? Reeves exhaled the truth she wished she didn't know. It's an exam. The microwave emissions resumed, but this time not outward. They began folding inward like an implosion of invisible force. The object's inner structure rippled, reorganized, recalibrated. Atmospheric sensors lit up with a new signal. Hart stared at the readout. Eleanor, this isn't radiation. Reeves nodded slowly. No, it's not. Then what is it? Ten demanded. Reeves closed her eyes. It's data synchronization. Synchronization with what? Ten snapped. The answer landed like a guillotine blade. With us. The microwave implosion deepened. Atlas hummed, a vibration too low to hear, but strong enough to feel. Every satellite in low orbit flickered simultaneously across half the planet. Radio stations went silent. Electromagnetic noise drowned every spectrum. Then a new signal emerged. Not random. Not cosmic. Not alien. A pattern. 3 pulses. Pause. 3 pulses. Pause. Hart whispered. The same pattern it used on the ozone? Reeves nodded. It's not a scan. It's a handshake. The room stared at her. What kind of handshake? Tenth said. Reeves pointed at the Reeve-form. A handshake sequence trying to establish two-way communication. Hart's eyes widened. It thinks we've responded? Reeves nodded. Yes. It thinks humanity is aware of the test. Silence. What do we do? The president asked through the speaker. Reeves stared at the dark glowing lattice. We answer. The room erupted.
We can't. It could be a trap. We don't know its language. It might accelerate the sequence. Dr. Reeves, this is madness. General Tent shook his head. No way. No communication attempt. That's a direct violation of international... The president's voice cut him off. We're past regulations, General. A beat. Dr. Reeves, if Atlas is expecting a response, what happens if we don't give one? Reeves spoke without hesitating. Then it concludes we failed. Hart whispered, and what does failure look like? Reeves didn't soften it. Extinction. That ended the debate. Reeves stepped to the central console, hands trembling but controlled. She selected the transmission channel. A low-frequency electromagnetic band. The simplest carrier wave. The most primitive form of technological speech. A signal that said, "We are here." Hart stood beside her. What do we send back? Reeves didn't answer at first. She watched Atlas's pulses. 3. Pause. 3. Pause. A query. A prompt. A test. Reeves inhaled. We mimic it. And then, Hart whispered, then we pray it understands. She transmitted 3 pulses, paused. 3 more. The room held its breath. Atlas stopped glowing. Everything stopped. Microwave emissions ceased instantly. Ionization trails vanished. The dark glow collapsed inward like a dying star. The lattice dimmed. Reeves's heart slammed against her ribs. Oh God, we answered wrong. General Trent reached for the emergency strike override, but then a new signal emerged. Soft, low, measured. A pulse sequence far more complex. A pattern that wasn't a test, wasn't a scan. It was information. A torrent of it. Hart stared at her feed, mouth open. Eleanor, this isn't a message. Reeves nodded. I know. It's data. Yes. Data about what? Reeves swallowed. About us. The signal continued streaming. Human atmospheric structure. Human technological signatures. Human electromagnetic noise. Human biological markers. Everything. Everything about Earth. Everything about humanity. A full planetary profile. Hart felt tears on her face. Why is it sending it to us? Reeves stared at the lattice beginning to dim. It's not sending it to us. Her voice cracked. It's returning the exam paper. General Trent froze. You're saying... Reeves nodded. The test is over. The president's voice trembled through the speaker. What was the test measuring? Reeves looked at the fading structure of Atlas as it prepared to leave Earth's orbit, and said the words that would haunt humanity forever. Competence. Silence echoed like a vacuum. Reeves continued, voice breaking. It triggered a crisis to evaluate whether a technological civilization could detect it, diagnose it, and respond rationally under catastrophic pressure. Hart whispered, and we didn't. Reeves shook her head slowly. No, we panicked. We sabotaged it. We tried to kill it. We misinterpreted every step. General Trent gripped the edge of the console.
So what does that mean? Do we get punished? Reeves shed her head. No, that's not how this works. She pointed at the final line of the data stream. A single repeating sequence. Hart translated it first. Her voice was barely audible. It's timer. Reeves nodded. It's giving us another chance. General Trent stared. A chance to what? Reeves looked at him with hollow eyes. To improve. Hart swallowed hard. For how long? Reeves showed them the number. 128 years. Hart whispered. A deadline. Reeves nodded. A deadline for what? Reeves turned back to the fading Atlas structure as it prepared to leave Earth's orbit. For the next assessment. Trent stepped forward. And what happens if we fail that one? Reeves didn't turn around. Species that failed twice don't get assessed again. She said quietly, don't get assessed again. The room fell silent. No one breathed, no one moved. And in the sky overhead, Atlas folded inward, its geometry collapsing into a perfect sphere of black light before accelerating in total silence towards interstellar space. No explosion, no flash, no fanfare. Just departure. As if nothing had happened. As if Earth were simply one more line item in a list too long to read. Reeves watched it shrink against the stars, then disappear. Hart whispered, Is it over? Reeves finally turned. No, she said softly. It's just begun. The ozone would recover, slowly, painfully. Over years, climate would restabilize, with scars, with storms.
With reminders. But the real damage, the psychological fracture, the knowledge, that would last. The president's voice returned, quiet and shaken. Dr. Reeves, she asked, what do we tell the world? Reeves breathed in and exhaled the truth, heavy and ancient. We tell them the sky asked us a question, a pause, and we weren't ready to answer. 2 weeks later, the world would return to something like normalcy. Planes flew again, markets reopened, ozone metrics stabilized, storm risk lowered, but no country looked at the night sky the same way. Not anymore. And Eleanor Reeves, she never slept without dreaming of that lattice, that geometry, that exam. She knew the truth. Earth wasn't unique. Earth wasn't special. Earth wasn't chosen. Earth was sampled, surveyed, assessed, one of many. The universe wasn't silent. It was structured, ordered, administered. And in 128 years, Atlas, or something like it, would return to see if humanity had learned anything at all. If humanity had grown, or if it remained what the data described. Technologically capable, behaviorally unstable. The final line of the Atlas data stream replayed in her mind, a sentence with no emotion, no judgment, just fact. Civilization viability, unsatisfactory.
reassessment scheduled. She whispered to herself in the dark, "We have one lifetime to change." And for the first time, she wasn't sure if that would be enough.